You've been watching from the shadows, waiting, not hiding, not afraid, just aware. You learned early that the loudest people aren't always the most powerful, that the ones who rush to speak are often the ones trying to convince themselves. So you stayed quiet, you observed, you let time do what time always does, reveal. And while you waited, they talked. They whispered your name behind closed doors. They smiled to your face and sharpened their words when you weren't around. They assumed your silence meant weakness, that your patience meant surrender. They were wrong, because silence isn't emptiness. It's space to see clearly, space to understand patterns others miss. You saw how they moved, how they manipulated narratives just enough to look innocent, how they twisted stories so subtly that no one questioned them. At first, you noticed how envy disguised itself as concern, how control pretended to be guidance, how betrayal smiled like loyalty. And through all of it, you didn't react. That was your mistake in their eyes, they thought. If you're not fighting back, you must not see it. They thought you didn't notice the pressure, the quiet undermining, the calculated exclusions. But you saw everything. You just chose not to burn energy on battles that weren't ready to end. Because you understood something they never did. Consequences don't need help. They unfold on their own, slowly at first, almost invisibly. And now the air feels different. You feel it before anything actually happens. That subtle shift in tension, that uneasy stillness that comes right before truth surfaces. The same people who once felt confident are restless. Now their words don't land the way they used to. Their certainty feels brittle. You see cracks forming, not dramatic, not explosive, just enough to notice if you're paying attention, and you are. You watch how their stories start contradicting themselves, how the lies they stack so carefully no longer align, how allies they once relied on begin to question quietly. You don't interfere, you don't expose, you don't confront. You let reality speak, and reality is relentless. You remember how they laughed once, how dismissive they were when you expressed doubt, how easily they believed you'd stay exactly where they placed you. That version of you, the one who absorbed everything without responding. They misunderstood it completely. They thought endurance was passivity. They thought restraint was fear, but restraint was strategy. While they were busy controlling others, you were mastering yourself. You learned how to regulate emotion, how to sit with discomfort without acting impulsively, how to let moments pass without letting them define you. Those lessons didn't look impressive at the time. No applause, no recognition. But now they're everything, because as pressure builds, people reveal who they are. And you've trained for pressure. You notice how panic changes their behavior, how urgency makes them careless, how desperation exposes motives they once kept hidden. They rush to fix things that no longer respond to force. They over-explain. They contradict themselves. You stay still, not frozen, centered. And the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. People start noticing the difference. They don't say it out loud, but they feel it. One side scrambling to hold control, the other grounded, clear, unmoved. You're no longer reacting to their actions. You're responding to your own alignment, and that alignment feels solid. For the first time in a long while, your chest feels open instead of tight. Your thoughts feel quieter, more precise. You're not replaying old conversations anymore, not rehearsing arguments you'll never have. You've outgrown the need to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That's another thing they never expected. They assumed your silence was temporary, that eventually you'd explode. Defend yourself, beg to be understood. But you didn't. You let them exhaust themselves instead. And exhaustion changes everything. It makes people sloppy. It makes them reveal truths they worked hard to conceal. You watch as their confidence erodes, not because you attacked it, but because it was never stable to begin with. Confidence built on manipulation can't survive clarity, and clarity is spreading now, not loudly, quietly, inside glances, in pauses during conversations, in the way people hesitate before repeating old narratives. You don't celebrate this. You don't feel triumphant. What you feel is relief. Relief that you trusted yourself enough to wait. Relief that you didn't lower yourself to their level just to feel momentary power. Because what's happening now is bigger than vindication. It's understanding. You understand that what they did was never really about you. It was about their fear of losing control, their discomfort with your independence, their need to feel superior by keeping you small. And once you see that clearly, resentment loses its grip. You stop carrying their actions like a weight. You stop letting the past replay endlessly. You take the lesson instead, and that lesson sharpens you. You are more selective now, with your energy, with your words, with who gets access to you. You no longer overextend to prove loyalty. You no longer explain your boundaries. You enforce them quietly, and the people who relied on your silence to manipulate situations, they feel that shift immediately because you're no longer available in the same way. Not emotionally, not psychologically. You're present, but not entangled. And that's unsettling to people who built influence on your predictability. They test you subtly, push small boundaries, wait for old reactions. They don't get them. You respond differently now. Calmer, shorter, clearer, not defensive, decisive. And every time you do, the distance grows. Not distance born of anger, but distance born of clarity. You realize something else too. You're no longer angry. Not because what happened didn't matter, but because it no longer controls you. Anger kept you connected to them longer than necessary. Clarity releases you. You see now that their collapse isn't dramatic. It's gradual, internal. They're losing credibility, losing trust, losing the ease with which they once navigated situations. And you're gaining something far more valuable. Certainty, certainty in your instincts, certainty in your restraint, certainty that you don't need to force outcomes for truth to surface. You've become patient in a way that can't be shaken. And patience, real patience, is intimidating because it signals confidence in time. You trust that what's built on honesty lasts, and what's built on manipulation eventually collapses under its own weight. That belief anchors you. So you keep watching, not from fear, not from bitterness, from awareness. You're no longer waiting for justice to arrive. You're watching reality rebalance itself. And you know, deep down, this process isn't finished yet, not even close. Because some truths still haven't surfaced. Some realizations haven't fully landed, and you don't rush them. You stay where you are, grounded, clear, ready, not to strike, but to move forward when the moment arrives. Because this chapter isn't closing yet, it's still unfolding, and then it happens. Not with a crash, not with a scene, with a quiet realization. You wake up one day and notice the weight is gone. That constant tension you carried without naming it. Lifted, your breath feels deeper, your thoughts less crowded. You didn't win in the way stories usually describe winning. There was no confrontation, no dramatic exposure, no final argument where everything was said. Instead, something far more permanent occurred. You detached. And detachment is where real power lives. You see it clearly now. The people who once tried to shape you, limit you, or keep you unsure, they're still circling the same patterns, still repeating the same behaviors, still reacting instead of choosing. While you moved on, not loudly, not arrogantly internally, you stopped waiting for acknowledgement, stopped expecting accountability from people incapable of self-reflection, stopped hoping they'd suddenly understand what they did. You no longer need them to understand. That's the shift. You understand. You understand that some people don't betray you because you're weak, but because you're strong in ways they can't control. You understand that manipulation often targets those with depth, empathy, and patience. You understand that your silence wasn't a flaw, it was protection. And now, standing on the other side of it, you see the full picture. Their world shrank while yours expanded. You notice how they struggle to move forward, how they keep revisiting old narratives, how they talk more, explain more, justify more, because they're trying to outrun consequences that already caught up. And you're no longer running from anything. You walk slower now, not out of fear, but confidence. You listen more carefully, not to others, but to yourself. Your intuition is sharper because it's no longer drowned out by noise. You trust it, and trust changes how you move through the world. You stop second-guessing decisions that protect your peace. You stop apologizing for boundaries. You stop shrinking your presence to make others comfortable, not because you're hardened, but because you're whole. You look back at the person you were when all this started, the one who questioned themselves, the one who replayed conversations at night, the one who wondered if they were overreacting. You feel compassion for that version of you, because they survived something that reshaped you. And survival didn't make you bitter, it made you precise. You choose carefully. Now, your words, your energy, your commitments. You no longer confuse access with connection, or proximity with loyalty. You've learned that people reveal their intentions over time, and time is the one thing you're no longer afraid of, because you know how to wait without losing yourself. The chaos that once surrounded you feels distant now, muted. Almost unreal, not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer defines you. The people who once seemed powerful, they look smaller now, not weak, just exposed as human, as flawed, as driven by fear rather than purpose. And you don't judge them for it, you simply don't follow them anymore. Your focus has shifted forward. You feel it in the way your goals have clarified, in the way your vision extends beyond immediate validation, in the way you're no longer distracted by proving anything. You're building now, not just externally, but internally, a sense of stability that doesn't rely on circumstances, a confidence that doesn't fluctuate with opinions, a calm that doesn't require isolation. You carry it with you, and people feel that too. They don't ask as many questions anymore. They don't test you the way they used to. They sense the boundary, even if they can't define it. Because boundaries enforced quietly are the strongest kind. You don't announce them. You live them. And that's when you realize the truth that changes everything. What happened to you wasn't a detour. It was refinement. Every moment of doubt sharpened your discernment. Every betrayal taught you where not to place your trust. Every silent endurance strengthened your core. You didn't lose time. You gained clarity. You gained depth. You gained the ability to stand alone without feeling lonely. And that ability is rare. The past no longer feels like a wound. It feels like a lesson fully learned, one you don't need to revisit, one you don't need to explain. You've integrated it. And integration is the final stage of healing. You don't need closure from others anymore. You gave it to yourself. You don't need validation for how you handled things. You know you chose integrity over impulse. You didn't become what hurt you. You became stronger than it. And now, as you move forward, you carry something unmistakable, Certainty, not arrogance, not entitlement. Certainty, the kind that doesn't waver when tested, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that simply is. You're no longer defined by who tried to control you, silence you, or diminish you. They're part of your past, not your identity, and as they fade further into irrelevance, not through punishment but distance, you step fully into your own life, present, focused, unburdened. This is where the story truly ends. Not with them losing, but with you no longer needing them to lose for you to win. You've already won by choosing clarity over chaos, patience over reaction self, mastery over resentment, and from here on out, everything you build is built on truth.